Good morning, Williamson Planet. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to talk about a very sensitive subject. And I'm sure it's going to ruffle some feathers. And anything that's sensitive and goes to progress always upsets a few people, especially those who benefit or are satisfied with the status quo, right? The status quo, of course, meaning how things are. And even though they claim they want change, etc., they benefit from how things are. Whether it is they get good salaries at their jobs, they get whatever recognition or whatever power they have. All right, and the thing we're going to talk about is why are black folks so embarrassed about talking about our problems so that we can also talk about our solutions? And let me tell you what I mean. Anywhere you go in America, in communities where people look like us, especially in the larger cities, of course you have different sets or people with different or in different socioeconomic categories, right? We may have people who are very well educated and maybe make a little bit more money than the average and have nice homes, nice cars, etc. You also have people who may have just the minimal education, but are good at whatever task they do and can do well at it. However, in a lot of our communities across the country, and something that we have to tackle directly so we can change it, we have large groups of people who look like us that live a lifestyle that does not create a lot of progress in society, right? And in fact, think about it this way. There are 40-something million black folks in America, right? About the same population size as it is in Canada, right? Imagine, and that's out of maybe a little over 330 million Americans. Imagine if all the other people disappeared today and it's just us black folks. What kind of society would we have? Would we have enough engineers and scientists to create all of the modern amenities we're used to, whether it's flat screen TVs, whether it's cell phones, whether it's computers that we're watching on? Do we have enough people to provide the doctors and dentists and the engineers and the architects to design our modern houses, cars, etc., right? And then look at the dark side of that. Will too many of us be so used to just getting good jobs from the people who provide all those other things that now, when those people are absent, we don't have much? Or worst case, will there be so many of those people who cause problems in society, people who cause violence and criminality? Will there be so many of them without enough people on the opposite side to balance out the scale that our societies start looking like failed societies that we're seeing around the world, like we saw at one point in Somalia, when they had one point when they had the Liberian Civil War, as we're seeing going on in Haiti right now in Port-au-Prince, where gangs actually control about 80% of Haiti's main city. These are places that have fallen, where you dial 911, you can't expect well-trained and generally law-abiding police to come and help you, and ambulances come and pick you up. And when your children are going to school, that they will be relatively safe, etc., right? So what I mean by us being too embarrassed about talking about our issues, if you look at the statistics right now, about 25%, by some counts, about 25% of black folks live under the poverty level, right? About 50% of black children live at or below the poverty level, or within, I should say, in the poverty level category. And how does a society function like that? Well, we function because we have all the other rest of society there to provide the services, right? You think of course, most of us work hard and get paid for our work, etc., and we live our lives, right? Many of us have to depend on government assistance, right? We're talking about Section 8. We're talking about food stamps. So, well, we used to call them food stamps, but we have cards now, and that type of thing, right? And all kinds of assistance, child care assistance, this assistance, that assistance, and those things are wonderful things. All right. The problem is those things are designed to be a safety net. So you use them when you need them, and then you are supposed to go to school, work hard, make wise decisions, and get off of these things, right? And I'm not just putting down people who are on these. Our family, I remember points in our lives when I was growing up when we had to tear the money out of the book, the little brown and tan $1 bills, if you know what I mean. And I have eaten the government cheese. Yes, I have. And you know, I tell you, I'm proud of it. Let me tell you what I mean by I'm proud of it. I am proud that much of what I was able to achieve in life, thank God, was through hard work, etc., and it wasn't handed to me on a silver platter. A lot of people get things partially on a silver platter. They do what they're supposed to, and they get ahead, and they pat themselves on the back. But I bet if a lot of these same people were put in a lot of the positions I was put in growing up, they would have failed. You know, they may be doing okay with their corporate jobs now, but they would have been crackhead Pookie on some corner if they weren't raised in middle class and educated type families, because they don't have the survival skills that they think they have, right? Anyway, so what I mean when I talk about us being embarrassed to talk about these, right? If these are the problems affecting our people, and such a large percentage of our people, and such a large percentage of our children, why aren't we tackling them directly? And what I mean by that, yes, we support government services to provide all the things like Section 8, etc., right? When I was an elected councilman in Princeton, I was a liaison for things like affordable housing, etc., which I'm extremely proud of, right? But when I say tackle them directly, right? Why don't we have classes in schools where our children talk about the daily issues they face? Why aren't there classes that talk about things that go on in the hood directly? I'm not talking about the cool teacher who on the side, or the cool coach on the side who says, hey man, you gotta do this to get ahead and don't get caught up out there. You know, don't listen to the thugs and all that stuff. I'm talking about why can't it be part of the regular curriculum, right? And when you talk to some educators, etc., now we have black people who are teachers, who are principals, who are superintendents of school, etc. But we talk to a lot of people, they say, well, we have to teach what the state says we have to teach. Like the state is some unknown entity, aren't made up of individuals that can be influenced, right? The same way teachers can protest when they do not have the contracts they want and the benefits they want. The same way we have to develop the sensibility to protest if our kids aren't getting the education they're supposed to have, right? So, and I'm not putting it all on teachers, right? Because sometimes we have a lot of parents who give up their responsibilities and just want to put it on the teachers, right? Sadly for the parents, a lot of the parents are at the same mental level and developmental level as their children. And what I mean by that, their children, they're just 18 years older, right? So a lot of them are also products of their society, right? So we have to develop systems to say, if this is going on in our neighborhoods and with our people, and it's happening, you go from Jacksonville, Mississippi, you go to Trenton, New Jersey, you go to Los Angeles, California, Compton, California, you go to Seattle, Washington, you go to San Francisco, California, you go to Chicago, Illinois. It's the same issue. And it's the same issue because, of course, we have the same history and the same current results of that same history, right? So black folks, we have to stop being embarrassed about talking about the issues that are directly affecting our people, and stop just saying, oh, they're poor, and let's just do these programs. Let's give out free book bags at the beginning of the school year. Those things are good and necessary. But we have to start thinking on a higher level. How do we change things so that we don't have generation after generation repeating the same problems? How do we make it where it's not normal to have people getting murdered in our cities every day, right? How do we make it create a civilization where our people are encouraged to be their best selves, right? And not be the victims of commercials, etc., where we think, where so many of us, and if you go into a lot of the inner cities, you go to Cleveland, Ohio, and particularly East Cleveland and cities like that, which are predominantly us, where you see a lot of the commercial entities, a lot of the stores, etc. What are they giving us? They're giving us overprocessed foods. We're getting a lot of liquor, cigarettes, all that type of stuff, and they're all advertised towards us, and that's where a lot of our money goes, destroying our health, etc. Right? We have to have a vision of creating a great society, right? So we can be part of the greater American society. And I hate when people say, well, white folks have those problems too. You have white people in Appalachia, etc. We all need to fix a lot of problems, and those problems need to be fixed too. But I'm concentrating on black folks. Stop thinking that white folks got to always be the standard. Like if they have some problems, then it's okay for us to have them or whatever. I'm just talking about creating societies where we try to be our best selves, right? Where that's and it has to start with our children, right? Right? If you look at it biblically, it says raise a child in the way they should go, and when they are adults, they won't depart from it. I believe it was Frederick Douglass that talked about it's much harder to fix broken men, and I would say adults in general, than it is to raise children properly, right? So when children are in school, that's the first time in their lives that they are captive audiences, right? Generally between ages 6 and 16, right? And that's where we have to fight that battle. That's where the front line is for that battle. The only other time they become captive audiences is when too many of our young people end up in jail, particularly our young men, right? So the point of all this is to say, let's stop being embarrassed about talking about things going on in the hood. Yes, I know there are a lot of people who, as they climb the socioeconomic ladder and they move out to the suburbs, etc., they start looking down on those people. Because one of the problems in American society, particularly for black folks historically, has been as black folks who do better, too many of them, especially the ones that have been multi-generational, college educated, etc., start to emulate white people, right? And they start to emulate what they consider upper class white society. Right? So instead of thinking openly, like some cultures that say, hey, these are all my people, I need to help them, right? And actually celebrate those who start at the bottom and rise to the top. We have a lot of folks start doing the old European thing of, well, they're new money, we're old money. That's just stupid. Anyway, I hate that, right? And act like somehow their neurons and synapses in their brains, whatever, are better, right? Instead of saying, how do we first of all create a consciousness that these are all my people, and we need to put things into place to make things work for all our people, right? So let's stop being embarrassed about it. Let's start dialoguing about this. Let's start creating these systems, right? And not waiting and not making the excuse of, oh, it's people over my head that make these decisions, etc. That's too much of a plantation mentality. We have to get out of that. We can't make the government and corporations replace the old massa on the slave plantations. It's our world, right? God gave us all dominion over this earth, not just them, right? So, I like to say this quote a lot because I believe in it. And I like to end this vlog today with this quote. We can because we think we can. Okay, thank you for listening to me. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos, and I appreciate it. Thank you.